Welcome back to Slightly Off Center. Before we continue the quantum series next week, I wanted to share something a little quieter. Not a theory, not a model, just a pause. This reflection is called Got Room to Think? And it's about the kind of space that lets ideas breathe. Let's begin with a thought from Thich Nhat Hanh. In his book, How to Focus, he wrote, "Once we get rid of our grasping, our fear and anger, our notions and concepts, then we have a very bright instrument with which to experience reality, free from dualistic notions of birth and death, being and non-being, coming and going, the same or different. The practice of mindfulness, concentration, and insight can purify our mind and make it into a powerful instrument with which we can look deeply into the nature of reality." That line stays with me, especially when I think about creative work. Picture this. You're walking through a forest. The ground is damp. You catch the scent of moss and earth. Birds are calling to each other above. Squirrels dart across fallen logs. And somewhere nearby, water is rushing over rocks. It's nothing dramatic, just nature doing what it always does. But something in you slows down. You notice. You breathe a little deeper. And in that moment, your mind starts to clear. Now contrast that with daily life, full of notifications, headlines, messages, and updates that never stop. It's not loud in the traditional sense, but it's still noise. It crowds your mental space. I remember reading a book by Rolf Dobelli called Stop Reading the News, and one line really stayed with me. News is already a processed thought. It's not real-time insight. It's filtered, shaped, and often disconnected from your lived experience. That kind of constant input can actually drown out your ability to focus on what's really meaningful. The real insights? They're often much closer. Your family, your friends, the feel of the weather outside, the quiet work in front of you. Things like global politics or celebrity stories might stir something in you, but most of them aren't within your reach to act on. And that imbalance, lots of emotional reaction with no action, that's draining. Stepping away from that kind of noise helps you recenter. And when you do that, something surprising can happen. Space returns. So where does creativity come into all of this? It's easy to think that being creative means constantly generating ideas, pushing, producing, performing. But in my experience, the best ideas tend to arrive when there's space. Not pressure, not clutter, space. When I stop trying to force a solution and instead give myself permission to pause, the ideas that come are usually the ones that stick. I think of it as mental white space, like a soft, open field where things can land. My dad used to say, "Never send an email you just wrote. Let it sit. Read it again with fresh eyes later." That advice applies to design too, or any creative process. When I give something a little breathing room, I often see it more clearly. Maybe it needs a small change. Maybe it doesn't need to be sent at all. The point is, space gives you perspective. It helps you see whether something feels right or just rushed. We see the creative process like pinning Post-it notes on a blank wall. As stories and concepts begin to show up, we don't judge them as good or bad. We look at the core. Does this idea fit? Does it belong? There's no such thing as a universally good or bad idea. There's only what works and what doesn't for this brand at this time. Sometimes a client will approach with a vision in mind. You go through the brief, you get to know the brand. But the first thing you design might not land. That doesn't mean it's a bad design. It just means the tone, the structure, the feeling didn't resonate. That same design might work perfectly for another client, another time. Every attempt is part of the learning. Maybe creativity doesn't come from stacking on more ideas, but from clearing space for the right one to appear. In Zen, there's this idea that living in the present brings clarity. Maybe that applies to creative work too. When we're not tangled in judgment or stuck in needing a specific outcome, we make better things. Not perfect things, but honest ones. Thanks for spending a few quiet minutes here today. If anything in this reflection stayed with you, feel free to share it with someone who might also need a little more space to think. You can support this project by subscribing or at buymeacoffee.com/itsheridea. Every small gesture helps keep this space going, thoughtfully and quietly. Until next time, stay well. and make some room to think.